Is there a single most compelling piece of evidence that you were witness to as it relates to your belief in UFOs and UAPs?
They were all significant. There wasn't one that said, "Oh, that's it," because they were all compelling in their own way. Whether you can go back to the USS Nimitz incident in 2004 or the Roosevelt incidents in 2014 and 2015, there was so much data. Every time you think you had one that was great, another would come in that was even better. So,
I mean, you've put one on the front cover of this book, though, right?
Yeah.
What is this incident on the front cover of your book?
That is known as the Gimbal incident. That is a video that was taken by an F-18, and you can hear the exacerbation. If you listen to the actual video, you can hear the pilots trying to discuss what it is. And then you also hear on it the discussion of, there's a whole fleet of them, look at the ASA, and oh, by the way, it's going 120 knots against the wind at roughly 20,000 feet. So it's not a balloon. And you begin to see this vehicle orientate itself in a 90-degree angle. Now, if this was a plane, like here's your wings, if you go in a 90-degree angle, you lose altitude, right? Because that's how the principles of lift work. That's not the case there.
I think this is the video. So.
Yep.
Dude, this is a fucking drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like, look at that thing. It's rotating.
And that was shot by 2 US sort of fighter pilots.
Yep.
And
there's a lot more of those out there, and a lot clearer too, but they're classified.
So there's more videos like this that you've been exposed to.
Oh yeah.
But they won't release them.
They will not release them.
Why?
Because of sources and methods, because they remain classified, because how they were taken, where they were taken, under what circumstances, what technological capabilities were used to collect the information. The U.S. government wants to keep out of the hands of its adversaries what our true capabilities are. So let's say you're flying a mission over a denied area and you don't want the enemy to know that you're over it, right? The last thing you want to do is release a video where you can look and say, oh, we're in this location and now the enemy knows, or we have this capability, or we can see this good. These are the technologies we have. These videos here, ironically, are probably some of the least compelling videos. Now, people say, oh, these are incredible, but these are the ones that were unclassified that could be released. The other ones, some of these are so clear. The problem is how they were taken, the collection capabilities that were used to take them, where they were taken, under what circumstances, the metadata in the video, all that is a consideration.
Okay. And do the US government and the Pentagon generally want people to believe that UFOs, UAPs exist or not?
I think it's both. I think up until recently, nobody wanted to have this conversation. The problem is the government backed itself up after 70 years of denial into a corner, and it has to figure a way out. There are some elements now that want the conversation to occur. And so that's why you see Congress getting engaged, why the creation, you have Arrow. But there are still elements, unfortunately, in the Pentagon that don't want this conversation to occur. And they will continue doing what they can to discredit individuals and launch this campaign against them. One of my colleagues, David Grush, who was a decorated Air Force officer and a senior intelligence official, the moment he broke rank and went public about this topic, within 24 hours, they released his medical records trying to discredit him, and they did it illegally. So there are people there that definitely don't want this conversation to occur.
Why?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why. Back historically, great question. Let's, can I unpack that a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you mind that? Yeah. Okay, so let's start really at the heels of World War II. You have these Foo Fighters that are being observed by Allied pilots, these luminous balls that would follow them into combat areas. And then after, particularly as we started developing in the atomic weapons, we started releasing a lot of UFOs over our controlled military airspace and over our sensitive military installations, our research facilities. And so at the time you have this mindset, you have height of the Cold War, United States versus Soviet Union. And by the way, they had nukes, and so did we, right? So you've got a real potential threat over there. And then you've got these other things over here. So as a general in the Pentagon, you say, look, I know these things are real, but they're not showing any overt hostilities. Meanwhile, we've got this real issue over here, this real threat called Soviet Union. Let's focus on this threat, and then we'll worry about this other stuff later. The other part of that is the mindset of, look, it's really uncomfortable as a government to have a conversation with its people about a problem that there's no solution for, right? We can see what they do, but there's not a damn thing we can do about it. We can't stop what they're doing. And so do you really want to have a conversation with the American people and admit a problem for which we don't have a solution for? That governments are solution focused. And that is not a great spot to be in, right? And it's, by the way, not the first time this has happened. Let's look at the U-2, for example, spy plane. When we first built that, the CIA commissioned it through Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and we were flying that vehicle in contravention to a standing treaty we had with Russia that we would not fly manned reconnaissance missions over Russia, mainland Russia. We were. But we built this plane to fly so fast and so high, we thought they couldn't detect us, right? And for a while, we thought they couldn't because we went unchallenged until the Russians were able to develop the surface-to-air missile, SA-2 missile, and successfully shoot one down. And then, and only then, did they admit to the world, we've been tracking these things since day one. The reason why they didn't talk about it is because they didn't have a means to shoot it down. So why admit a problem for which there's no solution until you have a solution? So that's another mindset in the Pentagon. And then you had several studies done that were commissioned by the US government in the past that asked the question, if we were to be honest and truthful about disclosure, about we're not alone in the universe, these things are real, what would the consequences be? And these studies came back, unanimously said, you can't do it. The American people are not ready to have this conversation. It'll cause civil discord and it'll upset the population and people will lose faith in their religions and the economy may crash. You can't do it. And so the decision was made, okay, we're not going to do it. In fact, we're going to actively suppress this information. We're going to stigmatize the heck out of it so bad that no one will ever want to even mention the word UFO. And it was very successful. That campaign to stigmatize this topic was so successful, in fact, that even now it's hard to unwind the tape and have the conversation. And so therein lies part of the problem. Why doesn't parts of the government want to have this conversation? Then you've got a legal issue, which is probably the biggest issue now. You have elements in the government that were making unilateral decisions not to inform Congress and not to inform the President of the United States, right? That's illegal. There are oversight committees that have a designated need to know on all intelligence matters, especially when it comes to funding, right? We're spending billions of dollars on these projects. You've got to inform Congress. Certain elements of certain oversight committees, like the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, they weren't being briefed to this. There's also this fear by some people on the inside of the government that, oh my gosh, I used to work on a secret UFO program. Am I going to be in trouble now because, we've been lying to Congress? And so it's a little more complicated than necessarily just saying, oh, well, we want the truth, be honest. It's not that easy.
To your knowledge, has there ever been recovered UAP or UFO materials?
What I can say is what I've been allowed to say, which is yes. Up until recently, I wasn't even allowed to say that.
When did that change?
When that book got reviewed. Up until that point, I had signed documentation from the government saying I will never discuss that, ever.
What happens if you did?
Oh, jail. Oh, yeah. That's why that book, I had to go through the process, because what I wrote in that book, I am allowed to talk about. I can't go beyond that, but at least I can talk about that. And in the book, I talk about, yes, that the government is in possession of material, exotic material that doesn't look like it's made by us.
Has there ever been anyone sent to jail because they've spoken about this subject matter?
Worse. And that story has yet to be told. Yes, there are people who have faced extreme disciplinary actions and potentially worse.
The death penalty?
I'm not going to elaborate right now because there's some things happening to try to. This is why Congress is working hard for whistleblower protections, because we want people to feel safe to come out and have a conversation. And right now they don't feel overly safe. They've seen some of the tactics and techniques that were applied to try to keep people quiet in the past. Let me say this in general terms. People say, oh, well, the government would never kill anybody to protect a secret. Try going to Area 51 and look at the signs on that chain link fence where it says lethal force authorized. You cross that fence and they can kill you dead. Okay? So the government can, under certain extreme cases, under certain extreme situations and conditions, they can do whatever they need to do to protect national security, and they will.
Which department is that?
I cannot go into that conversation, unfortunately.
Because people think of it as maybe the CIA or something, but
I can't elaborate, unfortunately.
you know, because I know very little about American governmental departments and such, but obviously most of the world knows about the like presidential assassinations and things like that. So, and I've spoken to a few CIA agents and stuff like that on my podcast before, but I've never really understood, frankly, who would be making such an order and how those things don't leak. You know.
Well, good question. Look, we've done it in the past, another situation, some pretty recently. I'll give you a case in point, and this is not, attacking anybody. We have used drones to lethally kill people, Americans, an American citizen specifically, and the person's child, without due process.
In the U.S.?
Not in the U.S. He was a U.S. citizen.
Oh.
He was suspected of being a terrorist, and there's some other things there. I'm not going to go in there. But we as American citizens we are afforded something called due process under the law of peace. And meaning you get your day in court no matter what. And there have been Americans where that hasn't been the case. They didn't get a day in court. Someone made the decision to liquidate them. There are examples of that happening. There's another one with Rosenberg's, those who were accused of selling the atomic secrets to the Russians, actually giving it to them. And if you know a little bit about what happened with his wife, turns out that she was innocent.
What happened to his wife?
They hung her and him for espionage. But because of the information that we had at the time, was so sensitive, we'd have to reveal a capability. So unfortunately, it looks like maybe we may have done something that we maybe shouldn't have done. I wasn't around for that, so I can't tell you definitively what happened. I can only tell you what my understanding of it is. I could absolutely be wrong, and I really hope I am. But it turns out that, there are extreme examples where we will take drastic measures to protect national security.
So in writing this book and in talking about the subjects, you understand that there's some people that don't want you talking about these subjects.
Oh, yeah.
So, and you also understand that the punishment for talking about these subjects can range from jail or worse.
Yep.
So are you not scared?
I didn't say that. I didn't say I wasn't scared. I mean, I'm taking huge risks. My life has been threatened many times, and it's very concerning for me. It's a reason why I live in Wyoming and I'm heavily armed and have now 6 German Shepherds. Yeah, I'm very cautious and careful, but I'm also understanding. I also know the left and right limits of the law, and I'm not going to break the law under any circumstances. This book isn't a leak. I'm authorized to talk about that book because I went through the proper processes of getting it reviewed, whether they like it or not. But yes, I am absolutely worried. This is why I'm very careful when I say things, because I don't want to. I'll walk up to the line. I will not step over the line. I will not violate my security oath and compromise national security for disclosure. And I don't think I have to. I think the proof is in the pudding. The fact that it's been 7 years and we've come this far in the conversation, and I haven't gone to jail, and I'm still here to have the conversation, I think is indicative of the fact that there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. I understand people want disclosure and they want it now. But I've told people before, there's a difference between doing things right and doing things right now. They're different. And we only get one chance to do this right. And so hopefully we can have this conversation, this collective conversation in a way where we don't have to be disruptive. No one has to be threatened. No one has to go to jail. No one has to lose their jobs or anything like that.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.